agree, if we agree that this is intentional and it continues, why it's allowed to continue. And I would say that one of the reasons it continues is that beyond, when we talk about reform, beyond changing rules and regulations and new laws and whatnot, that what we're actually dealing, and what makes reform so difficult, is that we're dealing with people in the system, police officers, judges, prosecutors, who actually believe that Black people, and I think some of you have hinted upon this and touched upon this, that Black people and brown people are more dangerous, more deviant, more inclined to be criminal than others. I mean, you've heard, if not in real life, and I've heard it in real life, on television, you've heard police officers or prosecutors who've made mistakes and arrested somebody wrongly, sent them to jail, and they would say, well, yeah, I'm sorry. He might not have done this, but he did something. And so, his ass ought to be in jail anyway. That's how difficult is it going to be to reform police departments, the courts, and to equalize sentencing when the people who are meting out this justice have racial attitudes like this. I'll start with you, Mr. Williams.
I would say that the earlier question really speaks to that. We have figured out ways to rationalize our country's bad behavior. By saying things like the system is broken, it allows judges and police officers and lay people to feel comfortable with this blatant racism that exists, to the tune that you can change the complexion of the judge, of the police officer, of the DA, and get the exact same racist result, get the exact same type of policing and prosecuting. The person who held this post before me, his social media was pretty much full of mugshots of individuals. And the lion's share of them were African-American. Needless to say, we removed those pages immediately, but we have to talk about reforming the media. We have to talk about reforming so many, schools. Ms. Lopez's comments about police in schools really speaks volumes to it. Very rarely do police stop a crime from occurring, right? Police are called after a crime has occurred. But having young people walk into schools with metal detectors and an armed person really says a lot about what we think about them, and that we believe that they are somehow more criminal than their white counterparts. Gregory Porter, one of my favorite jazz artists, he's about 6'4", used to play football, but he talks about how he would sing opera in an elevator if an older white woman got on that elevator to put her at ease, right? And that is really what is going on throughout this entire system. And so we have to be very specific about the verbiage we use, the language we use. I'm very conscious if I hear a prosecutor use words that dehumanizes a person who is charged with a crime, because we don't need to do that to prosecute. We also have to engage in implicit bias training to root out those things that folks probably don't feel are racist because they have a Black friend or a Jewish friend or a friend of or another minority. So we have to be very specific about how we're going to undo this work, right? The national average is roughly for accepting cases is roughly at about 60%. The DA who was here before me had a quota of accepting close to 90% of the cases that exist, when other parishes that are more rural, much more conservative, were only accepting 60, 65%. Well, my parish is predominantly African-American, right? And that same sort of percentage applies to how often the habitual offender law is used, right? So all of that really speaks to the criminalization of Blackness, right? And it has been, and I think the book Stamped from the Beginning does a really wonderful job of showing us every single phase and facet and evolution of this country, figuring out different ways to criminalize Blackness, from when an Irishman and an African tried to escape slavery together. They would penalize that Irishman more if he escaped with an African. And that has just been layered and layered in such a way that we sometimes don't even see it. So when Rick Jones says, if you walk into a courtroom, and that could be a municipal court, that could be traffic court, that could be magistrate misdemeanors, it's not just the big felonies, it's every facet of the criminal legal system. But you either walk into that courtroom and see all those Black men and women that are shackled and think something is wrong here, or you say something is wrong with these people. And I don't know what most people are actually seeing when they see that, because it is so pervasive.